Have you ever noticed that certain kinds of cases bring out the cynic in people? Medical malpractice, slip and fall, and rear end, neck, or back injury cases trigger some bad beliefs in a lot of jurors. For a lot of people, when they hear it's one of those kind of cases, their mind is made up, the volume on what you have to say has been turned way down, and your case is over unless you somehow find a way to turn the tide. But maybe there's a better way to start, and maybe you need to shake things up. To do that, you need to hit the jury with DTR. Disrupt, then reframe. In this video, I'll explain the science behind disrupt, then reframe, and how you can use it to get off to a faster start in your next trial. Hey, thanks for tuning into The Persuasive Lawyer. I'm Brendan Lupetin, a medical malpractice and personal injury trial lawyer obsessed with the power of persuasion and the surprising science behind what influences us. If you're new to the channel and digging it, please consider subscribing below. When jurors, like all of us, walk into the courtroom, they come pre-wrapped in attitudes and beliefs and experiences that have been built up over a lifetime. Tort reform propaganda, lame lawyer jokes, well, some of those are actually kind of funny. And ill-conceived lawyer commercials full of explosions and crash test dummies, I am the hammer, perpetuate the ambulance-chasing stigma. If the case that you are trying is the kind that a lot of people have probably formed bad impressions about, then you have to figure out how to get past their confirmation bias defenses. Remember, confirmation bias is our tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information that confirms or supports our prior personal beliefs and values. For a refresher, check out my video on confirmation bias. It's impossible to undo a worldview that's been created over a lifetime during the course of a trial. Instead, focus on the sliver of common ground you share. Get your foot in the door by focusing on that mostly frivolous zone. Most people recognize that there are exceptions to every rule and every belief that they have. To overcome the confirmation bias, you need to disrupt the jury's confirmation bias against your case by doing something they're not expecting.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do.
Disrupt, then reframe, or DTR, is a persuasion technique where you do something unexpected that surprises or perplexes the other person before reframing their view and making your pitch. Researchers have found that persuasion against hardened attitudes is improved by short-circuiting the listener's expectations. This temporarily drops their defenses and helps your message get through. In the original DTR experiment, researchers went door to door trying to sell holiday cards to people. In the control group, the experimenters told customers the cards were $3 each. The control group had a success rate of selling cards of about 40%. In the experimental group, the researchers did something different and something odd. When they knocked on the door and the customer asked how much for the holiday cards, the researchers told them that the cost of the cards was 300 pennies. And then they stopped and they said, oh, I mean $3. With this unusual approach that caught people off guard, 80% of the customers wound up purchasing the cards. There have been a whole bunch of studies that have been done on the DTR technique, so much so that in 2009, a meta-analysis was done of 14 prior DTR studies, and it confirmed the fact that the DTR persuasion technique is very persuasive and that it works. The theory is that when listeners are surprised or confused, they're forced out of their pattern or automatic response and are instead led to a fresh consideration of the idea you want to discuss. Now, it might seem like a bit of a stretch to extend a study about saying 300 pennies to the courtroom, but we can definitely use a similar disruptive approach to improve our chances of persuading potentially biased jurors. If you're a medical malpractice plaintiff's lawyer like I am, then a lot of jurors are going to see you as an ambulance chaser and see your case as a gross attempt to cash in on a sad medical outcome. I am the hammer. And because of that, a lot of jurors are going to expect you to demonize the doctor and criticize everything that they did. And if that's what you do, then you're going to get tuned out and you're going to be background noise, and none of your messaging is going to get through to those jurors for them to see the righteousness of your case. So instead of trashing the doctor in an opening statement, what if you point out that you're not here to say the defendant is a bad person or a bad doctor? To the contrary, they're a nice person. You've met them before during their deposition. You may even want to point out some of the things the doctor did right in your particular case. When you approach opening statement like this, a lot of the jurors are now going to be surprised and maybe even a little confused because what you're doing is not what they were expecting from you. Now, the jurors are actually listening in a less filtered way to what you are saying. You've disrupted their pattern way of thinking and opened their ears to the message that you have for them. This presents you with an opportunity to reframe and explain to the jury that, like all of us, doctors have to be careful to do their jobs the right way. In a slip and fall case, consider an opening statement pointing out what a lot of the jurors are already thinking. You know, when you came in here for jury selection and you heard that this is a slip and fall case, I'm going to bet that a lot of you rolled your eyes, maybe got a feeling in your stomach and thought to yourself, oh, here we go with one of those cases. And you may have thought that this was assuredly going to be a frivolous lawsuit. And you were right to think that, because unfortunately, there sometimes are frivolous lawsuits that get filed, and that's a shame. And because a few bad apples can ruin the bunch, it's doubly bad because righteous cases like this one get a bad rap as well. But we also know there are exceptions to the rule, and I believe that once you hear the facts of this case, you'll realize that this is a righteous matter that's worth your time and sacrifice as jurors. And I can tell you, at least anecdotally, that that worked well, because while I was waiting for the verdict, one of the alternate jurors, who was a local businessman, came up to me, and he specifically said that he had tuned me out during jury selection because this was a slip and fall case, especially because he was a small business owner and generally speaking was not too fond of people filing claims for slipping and falling on his property. But he said that when I confirmed what he was thinking and explained that there are exceptions to the rule, that he wanted to hear me out, and he did that, and he told me that if he was on the jury, he was going to find in favor of my client. So the disrupt in the DTR technique is really just a matter of leveling with people, leveling with jurors, being human and not a robot.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger!
And the cool thing is, you can find opportunities to disrupt all throughout your trials. That's going to really help the jury see things from your point of view. I hope you give it a try during your next trial. So that's it for this episode of The Persuasive Lawyer. I'm Brendan Lupetin. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my channel and some of the other videos that I've produced in the past. And if you have any questions or suggestions about future videos, please leave a comment below because I would love to talk about what people have questions about. Thank you so much.